Hi class, I hope that you're doing well and having a great day. We are so close to the end of the semester and I've been so impressed by the caliber of work that you've all turned in for the most part. I really enjoy hearing your speeches, reading your outlines, reading your cultural analysis, all the things that you've turned in so far, and I hope that this class has been a help to you just in understanding communication better, but also setting you up for success in the future when you go into business and you have to give presentations, when you are in the classroom and you're speaking in front of your class, when you have to give out an award, or just other events in your life where you might be giving a speech. I really hope this class has helped set you up for success. I know it's been very accelerated, and I know we're also in a really unusual time. And so I really want to make sure that I'm being understanding and flexible with that. So if you have questions about your grade, if you need clarification, if there is something that you'd like to rewrite and submit, or if there's something that you missed and you feel like you have an excuse, please do reach out to me. I do want to be flexible and help you guys out so you can do well in this class. Thank you for being flexible with me. I know a couple of times it's taken me longer to answer an email than it normally would, and that really has to do with having the baby, but I do apologize for anything, any extra stress that may have caused. So just let me know if you feel like there's something I can do to help you do better in this class in these last couple days. I want to go ahead and make a video real quick going into a little bit more depth about our final exam. All right, our final exam is 21 questions. It's mostly multiple choice with a few short answer and essay questions. And I did post like a review under announcements of things you should know, but I want to go into a little bit more depth about some of these answers, and I will give you some of the answers straight out, honestly, but I also, some of these answers, even if I tell you the answer straight out, you're still going to need to be able to apply it. Okay, so even if I give you a list and I say, here are the 5 types of speeches that you need to know, the layouts of speeches, you still need to be able to apply those layouts and be able to understand what is really involved with each one. And a lot of times I give you examples or scenarios and you have to apply the information that you know, okay? So this is a test you can take open book. You can look at my notes and some of the other notes that you might have taken so far in your textbook and videos. Keep in mind it is 2 hours long. I really don't think most of you are going to have an issue with it, but if you need clarification before you begin, please let me know. It is open till 9 o'clock on the 21st, and I really need it to be completed by that time because I have to have everything turned around before the 22nd. So I'm going to grade those as soon as I possibly can. As soon as they start rolling in, I will turn around those final exam grades. But please don't wait until the last second, because if you have a technology issue, I might not be able to help you if the class has ended. Okay, I want to work with you as much as I can, but once the class is over, it's over. So really make sure you're working on that, okay? All right, so let's jump into our final exam review. The first thing I put on there is that every speech should be organized into an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And we've talked about what should be in each part of your speech, in your introduction, in your body, and in your conclusion. What is the minimum amount of time you should be making eye contact during your speeches? The different textbooks actually have updated to include different information. And so 80% is the number that's in some of your textbooks. If you have a different edition, it might say 85%. Either answer is actually acceptable, and I made both of them acceptable on the test, but I usually teach 80%. So just for future reference, if you have to give a speech at work, in school, at a wedding, if you have to give a eulogy, if you're just in a scenario where you're speaking in front of people, you want to try to be looking up and out at your audience at least 80% of the time, okay? Next question, what are the 2 types of general purposes that a speech might have according to the textbook? Think about the 2 speeches you've given this semester so far. One speech was designed to inform, one speech was designed to persuade. Okay, so you're either informing or persuading your audience. Every speech should be centered on your audience. If there's one takeaway that I can give you for this class, it's to make your speech audience-centered. You want to make a speech that relates to your audience, that resonates with your audience, that clicks with your audience. You want to make your audience like you. You want to make your audience care. We have probably all met someone who just likes to get up and hear themselves talk. They just like to get up and speak about things that are interesting to them. Is that someone you want to spend a lot of time around? Usually not, right? Instead, you want to be around someone who you feel like relates to you well and speaks in a way you can understand. And so great speakers make their speeches all about what will resonate with their audience, okay? So make sure your speeches are audience-centered. So on the chapter on persuasion, we ask a couple questions. First of all, what group of people constitutes your target audience? And the people you really want to appeal to in that situation are people who are more neutral. You don't want to speak to the people who strongly disagree with you. They still are important members of your audience. They still need to hear what you have to say. But if they strongly disagree with what you're saying, it's very unlikely they're going to be persuaded, okay? So you aren't necessarily targeting those people, even though you're still speaking to them and including them. And then you also don't want to target so much the people who already strongly agree with you, because that's like preaching to the choir. They don't really need to be persuaded. They already agree with you. So who you're trying to persuade are the people who aren't over here against you or aren't for you. You want the people who are kind of neutral. Okay, think about presidential debates and town hall meetings. They pull in the undecided voters, right? You're not going to have Trump going to a group of people over for Joe Biden and trying to speak at a Biden rally, just like Biden's not going to come speak at a Trump rally. They know those people are already against them, and those voters will not be very likely to be swayed, right? Instead, they try to find the undecided voters and appeal to them. That's just the strategy that works the best. All right, the next question is about interference, which we sometimes call noise. And that is what cuts right through the middle of our communication process that we talked about in chapters 1 and 2. And it keeps our communication from being as effective. It keeps us from understanding and interpreting information the way that it's meant to be sent to us, okay? And interference can be external or internal. External interference is anything that's happening in your environment that's keeping you from being able to understand this information or being able to interpret it correctly. So external interference might be if someone's doing construction work outside of the window, or if someone around you is chewing really loudly and that's something that bothers you. I know there's some people who are really bothered by loud chewing or pen clicking. I have a cousin like that. I drive her crazy. I'm apparently a loud chewer. But anyway, that's something that's happening around you in your environment that would really be bugging you. If you were in class and you were trying to pay attention to your teacher, but the audio-visual person had to come in and mess with the computer and it was distracting you, that would be a type of external interference. So it's not stuff that's going on up here, it's stuff that's going on out there. Now, internal interference is anything that's happening inside of your mind or body that's keeping you from paying attention. So maybe you got a text message before class that distracted you or that concerned you. Maybe you're worried someone in your family is sick, or you're thinking about a quiz that you have in the next class. Maybe you're hungry or you're tired and you just feel overwhelmed and it's hard to listen and pay attention because of that. Those are all types of internal interference, and they keep the communication process from being as effective. Okay, so those are the two types of interference, internal and external, and what they mean. The textbook definition of extemporaneous speaking: it is not speaking off the top of your head with no planning or forethought. Google will tell you that's what it is. That's what extemporaneous speaking is. That is not what we consider it in this class. Extemporaneous speaking in this class is when you do your research ahead of time, you practice, you think about what you're going to say, but you don't word everything out exactly. Like, you don't have your exact wording memorized when you get up to give your speech. You're not speaking in this very highly formalized way. Instead, you're speaking in a more relaxed, laid-back way. Even though you have done research, you are prepared, you're trying to relate to your audience. It's kind of like the way that I would teach a class or the way you'd give a business presentation. You don't have every word memorized, but you're still professional and prepared, and you're speaking in a more laid-back way. Some things to take into consideration when performing an audience analysis, things you'd want to know about your audience might be age, gender, race, political affiliations, religious beliefs, subcultures. Where are you speaking? What are their attitudes towards the topic you're speaking on? If you just put age, race, and gender into this answer, then that would be fine. Those are all helpful things to know about your audience before you go to speak. A logical fallacy is an error in reasoning. Okay, an error in reasoning is a logical fallacy, and there's a number of logical fallacies you should know from the textbook. The 5 steps of Monroe's motivated sequence are catch attention, show the need for change, show how the need can be satisfied. So you can think of the need like the problem and the satisfaction step like the solution. The 4th step is visualization, and the 5th step is a clear and compelling call to action. Okay, remember that's what someone can do today immediately to act on what you're saying. The purpose of a commemorative speech is to inspire. There's a couple ways that you can appeal to the emotions of your audience through storytelling or through using vivid language, speaking with conviction, things like that. You can show a picture that's especially, it might appeal to someone's emotions. So if you think about it, you could talk and be in your speech, giving a speech about, texting and driving. And you could talk about how if you text and drive, you might get into an accident, but showing your audience a picture of a car wrapped around a tree might actually appeal to their emotions more and get them more involved in your speech. You establish credibility by either stating your credentials. So I have a degree in this, or I have a certification in this. You can establish credibility by saying, I've done my research on this topic and telling your audience about the research. Or you can establish credibility by saying, I have personal experience with this topic or in this area. The 5 types of speech layouts from the textbook. There's chronological, which is telling your audience what happened in the order in which it happened, so according to time. Telling your audience about how things happened according to not when they happened, but where they happened. That's a spatial layout, okay? So spatial focuses on geographic locations and where things occurred. A causal layout, I always call this the Hangover format, and if you've never seen the movie The Hangover, don't watch it. It's really vulgar and terrible, but if you've already seen it, you know what I'm talking about. In that movie, the people, they wake up in a hotel room and they have no idea what happened. There's a tiger, someone has gotten punched in the face, there's a baby there, the room is trashed, they've got no idea what happened, and the whole movie they're backtracking to try to figure out what led to that point. That's what a causal speech is. It's where you talk about how things are currently, and then you backtrack to talk about what caused things to be this way. A problem solution speech is where you state what the problem is and state how the problem can be solved. And a lot of times we use that in persuasive speaking. And lastly, there's topical. And topical is where you talk about different topics related to the same subject, but you don't necessarily have to organize them in any specific order. So let's say you were giving a speech on Marilyn Monroe. If you were going to do a chronological speech, you might talk about her early life and her middle life and her later life and then her death, right? If you were doing a topical speech, though, you might say this was her professional life, this was her personal life, and these are the scandals surrounding her death. Okay, so that would be topical. Literary tools you can use to make your language more powerful and vivid. That's in the textbook. You probably picked up on some of these in English class in high school, but things like imagery, metaphors, similes, rhythm, alliteration, those are just some examples of literary tools you can use to make your speech more powerful and vivid. Ethnocentrism is when you think that your culture is superior to other cultures. It's not exactly the same thing as racism. A lot of time with racism, you're looking down on other people. You think that they're inferior. With ethnocentrism, it's kind of more like, well, if it's good enough for the USA, it should be good enough for everyone, right? Or you might hear of a custom in another country, and because it's not the way you do things in your culture or your country, you say, oh, they're just weird, right? That is ethnocentrism, when you think your culture sets the standard, your culture is superior to other cultures, okay? And lastly, ways to minimize your speech anxiety. You can exercise beforehand, you can practice breathing exercises, you can power pose, you can distract yourself before your speech, you can memorize the first 30 seconds of your speech. There's a lot of strategies that I laid out in my speech anxiety PowerPoint that you can refer back to. Okay, so I know that we didn't talk about a lot of these in class. Most of these questions are based off of the textbook, and then I mixed in some questions that I went over in my lectures, but I do think that this is going to be helpful for you as you take the final exam. Again, if you feel like you need clarification, if you have questions about the class in general, your grade, any assignments in the class, don't hesitate to reach out. I really do want to work with you and help you to succeed